Good afternoon, evening, morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Korean Starleague. I'm Nathanias. I'll be bringing you on a journey through space, time, and hopefully, not too many other places. I mean, space and time can be cool, but like, you know, we don't want to push the limits, obviously, too much further than they need to be. Is this the right scene for this? Okay, there we go. Sorry, I had to fix the colors. I think you guys might have seen the scoreboard looked a little funky. I do have a different scene for casting versus just having the game with nothing on it. So now you've learned a little bit about how the sausage is made. And speaking of sausage, let's introduce the players. In the top right, obviously I'm going to cast every single match I ever get the chance to of this man because I am a fanboy. You could also call me his Gumiho. And he faces off against one of the I don't know how to even say it, a legend almost of the Korean Starleague. We see Classic, and we see Classic here every week, just about. Gumiho coming back this week when I was looking at the participating players. So that's why we're starting with the Gumiho match, obviously. I'm like, Gumiho's in the bracket against Classic. Doesn't really get too much better than that. Korean Starleague takes place every week. They have a Patreon and a Matcherino. I think they take about somewhere in the realm of a couple $100 every week on the line for these players. So it's not nothing. And Classic is going to get a little citizen's arrest there on the SCV to start it off. Some Terran players out there losing their minds over that. Seeing that SCV die early, that can be a traumatizing event. Meanwhile, Classic going for the Adept as he takes that Nexus. And nothing super out of the ordinary here. Very standard way to open. You send the probe out. You do a little tasing, make a little love, come back to your base, and then the Reaper tries to get a couple of kills if it can. But the Adept usually pops out right on time. So Gumiho tries to click up. You can see that when he clicks up the cliff, his Reaper redirects back towards the natural. That's one of the ways that he's just kind of testing to see if there is a wall up there. And of course, if there wasn't, then his Reaper would just go there. But he's not trying to dive past the Adept, since Adepts are, well, they're rather adept at killing Reapers. Most of the light units struggle. Meanwhile, Gumiho has his natural completing in the main. So he built the command center there. He wanted to take it a little bit slow, not rush it onto the low ground in case there wasn't another Adept coming across the map, or in case there was any sort of aggression. And in Terran versus Protoss, we know that there can be a lot of aggressive builds on the ladder, but you just don't really see them as much in tournaments, since, of course, once you become known for doing certain types of things, people will always be looking for it, and makes it a little bit tougher. So you play a little bit more straight up, and these are two players that do bring a lot of great straight up games to the table. Gumiho, not really known for cheesing a whole lot. Classic, I would say he's been mixing it up really well. And I feel like I can only say that because he's been playing in the Korean Starleague so much. And I've been able to commentate him playing pretty much every week now for, feels like, a month or two since we started recording these. And he's been busting out this, there's this Korean Protoss versus Zerg build where they go really fast, 2 base carriers, and it's a double carrier rush, and they just send it straight across the map because that macro game is so hard to play. And it's not a Terran build that they would use in this matchup, necessarily. But I still like that there's some weird stuff that people are throwing around and trying to do. So obviously, Protoss has been on the lower end of the competitive side of things. But I do believe there's currently a huge mess with that whole Colossus conversation. So on America, they patched the Colossus, but they broke the shield battery, so you actually cannot cancel shield batteries on the live version of the game. But this was played on the old patch, so all you really need to know is that the Colossus has the 10 range in this, I think. I don't think they played this on the custom mod. So just keeping everybody aware of what version of the game we're playing on, since tournaments and ladder don't really match anymore. Little bit of a poke with the Adepts and Stalkers. Trading one, not really doing a lot, but the Phoenix Harass is where Classic is trying to get his value, and he's going to roll up on that Raven, pops it as soon as it finishes. The auto turret comes out, but not really at a good time, and that's a great play. Great heads-up play from Classic. You see the Phoenix opening. We saw the Stargate rather early, and he got that early Phoenix Scout, but not only does he have vision to see what Gumiho is up to and try to keep tabs with him, but he can kind of more easily deny any drop play. We know how much Terran players love dropping Widow Mines in your base at the beginning of the game. So, something to always be mindful of. Royal Blood is also one of the biggest maps in terms of the space between the entrance of where your natural is and where your third base is. You have a huge amount of space to cover, so you won't see Protoss players making bulwarks in this spot. They're going to try to split it up between both bases, and that does make them a little more vulnerable, so something to keep in mind as Gumiho will eventually, I'm sure, be posturing between those bases. And we do have Colossus range being researched, so again, I just want to stress, if you're playing on NA, the Colossus range is 9. If you're playing on Europe, the Colossus range is 10. And I believe it's also 10 on Korea, so just so you guys are aware, that patch is only coming out on America because they broke the shield battery, so if you play on NA, you're going to see 9 range Colossus. If you play on Europe, you're going to see 10 range Colossus. So it's a little bit more like Pokemon now, you know? Some of them are different when you go to Johto or Kanto, I think. I think that's the new copium for it anyway. So the Phoenix come through once again. There are a couple of Vikings out, though. I don't know if Classic wants to lose any of these. It might be difficult for him to save them all. It kind of goes around the edge. Good control to send these Phoenix to the right side, so he manages to buy himself a smidge of time there. Not too shabby. And there we have it, several Colossus. And Gumiho's army is very big, it's very powerful, but there's a couple of important things to note. It is pretty much entirely just Marines, and that means 3 Colossi with extended thermal lance are going to be very, very tough to stop. Be very tough to stop, and I just want to show this visually just so there's no confusion. But yeah, there it is. The extended range upgrade is done. So Classic, he is going to have a great army for dealing with Marines. Mass Marine is not going to do it super well. And if you're wondering what Gumiho has been up to in the Terran versus Protoss matchup, he's mostly been pushing a very bio-heavy style. And I know you're like, Nathan, everybody does a bio-heavy style. Except you, Nathan. And then I would say, that is correct. However, Gumiho not really been leaning too much on Ghosts, Vikings, Liberators, as much as other Terran players. He seems to be very fixated on that mid-game. Maybe he's going to change that today because we're seeing this Ghost Academy come out already. But from him, it's been a lot of send units at you, big hits, big pushes. And maybe the way that this particular game has started has put some alarm bells on for him, so we haven't been able to see Gumiho go across the map or really try to do too much of anything. So it makes things a little bit tricky. And I think that there's no reason for Classic to leave his base anymore. He has a way to harass. Oh, he's going to let the full health Phoenix tank the Widow Mine. A Widow Mine cannot kill a Phoenix. It will maim it brutally, but it will not kill it. So if you have a full health one, you can use that to soak and then move your way around. So Gumiho now into 2-2. Yeah, Gumiho likes to use that late game gas for the BC transition if he can. That is true, but that requires the uber late game. Most Terran players would rather A move to their own death than transition to late game in this matchup. Really in any matchup, so. Gumiho, not quite as stubborn as your average Terran player though, which is why we see so many interesting games from him. It's why he has that reputation. And it's also why he is a former GSL champion. GSL Code S. Not to be confused with Mountain Dew Code Red, which is for the Call of Duty champions. This is a huge army. 3 Colossi, we talked about it. A lot of Marines very vulnerable to that splash, and they are going to eat it, trying to retreat from the Protoss forces. The Zealots have taken a little bit of a beating, but now he's going to rotate around towards that third. It does go the other way. The huge distance between this is going to make it a little more tough for Gumiho to chase. He doesn't have a tremendous amount of Zealots, though, and the Phoenix have mostly been taken out of the picture. So while he has killed a lot, and while he's done a lot of damage, he might need to consider an escape route. He may need to consider some sort of follow-up plan for keeping these units alive as we have that 1 weak Colossus in the back. Is going to try to come up and target it. Instead, gets the second one. He's going for the full health, boys. 2 Colossi down, 3 gone. And he's killed basically everything. But if this command center lives, then there's got to be some hope, right? He's got a lot. He can drop lots of mules. We have a pretty tremendous amount of orbital energy available to him. And he still has the majority of his army left over. So Classic ends up getting kind of swarmed in that position. May not have been the fight that he was looking for. But he did do a lot of damage to Gumiho's economy. So there we go. The big mule drop is going to come in. Let's see. What does that income tab look like? It's still a pretty nice lead here. Not too much. A couple hundred minerals extra for Classic just because he has the 4th base already set up. And, 4 mules is great. But a lot of SCVs died here as well. Plenty. 31 SCVs have died in the making of this film. And now you go to the awkward situation where you're up against disruptors, but you're up against disruptors, stalkers, zealots. But your army is mostly just this small Marine Marauder contingent, which makes me nervous for several reasons, but also Vikings, which are not really going to do much here. Gets 1 EMP on an Archon, and yeah, I don't know. He's gonna slurp up that shield battery like it's a Pacific Cooler Capri Sun. 1 gulp, squeeze the bag to death in your hand for the last 3 drops, and then you dunk it into the wastebasket like a Shaquille O'Neal. Coming out of that 4th base again is Classic. We see that disruptor shot going out. Gets a huge hit onto the Marauders. Will clear out one of the Widow Mines as well. We did have a Prism reach the main base of Gumiho. No turret on the outside, so he goes straight in. 6 of them. There's a lot of Vikings here, so he should be... Oh, wow. Actually picks up 3 Zealots as the Prism gets sniped. I think if you're Gumiho there, you're like, okay, I just caught myself a nice little breather. Also like the way his production is laid out. He can rally his units into choke points immediately as they finish with the way this is spaced. I don't know if that was intentional, but I like that Zealots couldn't surround you if you rallied these barracks into the middle of all of them. Maybe that's just some random dumb thing that doesn't matter, but I'm going to point it out to you anyway. That Nova, though. Oof! He's trimming some off of the edge. Archon very low at the front of the fight. The rotation of the shields has been nothing less than stellar out of Classic. The Stalkers will now blink ahead, continuing to soak a little bit. It's tough to push through this. Looks like some Zealots did want to push the 3rd base while that was happening, but the landed Vikings are continuing to maintain their value. It's not easy, though, right? That's the hardest part. You build the Vikings, you're like, they don't really do very well against anything except Stalkers. They do decent damage to Disruptors, but getting landed Vikings onto Disruptors is not something the Protoss should let you do. So, at that point, we are hypothesizing about low percentage scenarios. EMP is going to hit the Stalkers, though. This planetary fortress is very important for Gumiho. Getting up to 4 bases would be massive right now. As Classic is taking his 5th, we already talked about the number of SCVs that died this game. Gets another shot off, picks up a Ghost. We'll take the Widow Mine with the next one, and that Disruptor count is just filthy. How many do we have? 11. 12. I know, I can count. It's incredible. 12 Disruptors on the field, and now going into Immortals. But the weird thing about this army is it can be difficult to push into an entrenched defense, but I suppose this opened up base is probably a really nice grab for Classic, who is close to maxed out, so it's not all bad. I think if Gumiho's army could get on him, he could kill him, but it's the Disruptors zoning away, right? That's what he has. Now, this is when he could get surrounded from both sides, so the Vikings dodge the Nova by picking up. And Classic just walks in, deletes the 3rd base, turns 360 degrees, and walks out. And by delete the 3rd base, I mean he made him lift it up and killed 10 SCVs. So, was it worth it? A lot of the Disruptors are still alive. He still has 11. He's still going into Immortals. So I think his army is really good. But if you're Gumiho, I don't know. You've got a little bit more money than you should probably have. And you don't seem to be in a place where you can attack into this many Disruptors. So I would like to see him go... I'd love to see him go for one of his battlecruiser transitions. If he could get the cash. Maybe he's worried about getting attacked and he just needs to keep piling into this. But I do think he's going to struggle trying to push into this many disruptors while out on the field. He's going to need Classic to really screw up because he's also got, geez Louise, he's got 8 Immortals. This is one of those things that can only happen to people who play Bio and don't build Liberators. But the Protoss doesn't even need anti-air. He doesn't even need anti-air anymore. It's not a whine, by the way. I'm just saying it's brilliant. He's recognized that Gumiho is just playing this low-tech mass Marine Marauder style like we talked about. And he's saying, I don't need to even think about going to Tempest if you're not going into Battlecruisers or Liberators, so he won't. The Widow Mines are probably going to pay off the most for him. These Marines taking the fight on the left side, trying to hold it down. A little bit of high ground action for Gumiho. He's going to be able to take a few of the Disruptors. Now keep in mind, 8 Immortals, you just right-click on the command center and it dead. There is no repair. There's no repairing that. And that Planetary is just beyond, forget beyond meat. It's beyond dead. Meanwhile, that next attack to that 5th base in the bottom left, or excuse me, the 6th base in the bottom left, will be redirected towards the 3rd, recognizing there are not a lot of probes over there. There aren't a lot of probes. And as he pushes that natural, we're going to see the 3rd of Gumiho come under attack. Oh my god, that's 8 Immortals, guys. 8 Immortals. He recalls about half of the army back to the natural to stop the base trade. Widow Mines detonate onto the Immortal, which is able to soak it up. And he's going to let 2 Vikings and 1 Marine, 1 Stimmy boy, clear that out. The Widow Mines in his base have been deleted. This game is so strange to me. There are 13 Immortals and 10 Disruptors out. Have I ever cast a game where this has happened before? 13 Immortals? 13? If Roddy was here, he'd remember. But he'd probably say something like, mate, nobody builds 13 Immortals in WCS. Mate. And I would probably be like, yeah, that's true. That's true. The game wouldn't have gone this long if it was NA. So gets 2 Liberators with Widow Mines underneath. This is what I'm talking about. He gets the support on the high ground. He's able to soften him up. There's not a lot of anti-air, so suddenly even the probes get pulled. I mean, 4 Immortals is still a tremendous amount of firepower, but you can see Gumiho's able to pick up a couple of chips here and there. I think, and the reason why I'm not getting crazy hyped right now is because I think Classic is still in a fantastic spot. Gumiho's upgrades are 3-3, so by all accounts, this game is extremely close. I just like that Classic's been able to hold those bases up better. Gumiho's lost a lot of workers. He's lost his command center on more than one occasion. He's had to float his main base out. I'd love Gumiho's position if his economy wasn't in such dire straits, because he's going to take out that prism on the outside of his base. I think he floated the main over to the 3rd and then rebuilt the 3rd as his 4th. So could you imagine if this just walks up and deletes that? That would be upsetting. Disruptor's coming out. Gets 1 Marauder and a Marine. One of the ghosts in front of the army gets picked. He's sending the Viking flank around the outside. Vikings do kill probes in 2 hits, so it's a good deal. Or maybe they won't now that the probes have plus a 3 armor. I really don't know. Let's find out. 1, 2, yep, takes 3 hits. Takes 3 hits now. Interesting, very interesting. Or maybe that was the shield battery, Nathan. Could be bad data. Could be bad data. Anyway, he warps and stalkers and kills the Vikings because that's how it goes, baby. Look at this army! Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? What is this? The robotic destruction. Is that the AI is taking over, ladies and gentlemen, in StarCraft apparently. Gumiho's going to try to go for a base trade because he realizes that running a Marine Marauder army into 14 Immortals is probably not the winning hand. It's probably not the winning hand. I'm almost surprised Classic doesn't just A-move him. I kind of want to see him do it. I've never seen... To me, this is like the ultimate FU. You're not going to go Battlecruisers. You don't respect me enough to go BCs. Or mass Liberators with range, then I don't need to think about tier 3, bro. I'm gonna make Zealots, Stalkers, and a crap ton of Immortals and Disruptors because you have no air units. He's got 2 Liberators that just finished. And even though there was an armory for 3-3, there's no attack upgrades. No attack upgrades. I love you, Gumiho. I love you, Gumiho, but, remember when you took this base right here and I said you should probably go BCs? Yeah, you should have telepathically heard me from the future and probably made VCs. But that's okay. It's okay. I think there's another game. I don't know how he gets out of this. What do you do here? Look at this army. Do you see? You guys all see this, right? My brain just turned off from the amount of immortals on my screen. It's unnatural. Gumiho is going to counterattack the third base. Classic still has his peripheral economy, though. So this becomes maybe the least important base that he has. Perhaps nice for a recall or to provide energy to chrono boost other Nexi, but not really that important. This gold base will be most likely what does it. There's 28 probes on this expo, so he's fully saturated to the max. He's already mining it from a distance. You'd love to see it. Oh, window mine coming in. It's just, is it too little, too late? Is it too little, too late? It's my worry. Marines and Marauders can kill Zealot Stalker. They'll trade pound for pound. But this is not Zealot Stalker. This is like Abomination Gateway. This is, you can't, I can't. I think about like 30 mutas being in production right now. I think about how many battle cruisers I would like to be building right now against this. And I'm salivating at the thought. Gumiho played a pretty good game, but I feel like Classic has an incredible read on how to counter Gumiho's style. This is exactly what I was talking about at the beginning of the game, by the way. He did get the Ghost Academy. We've seen him get a few ghosts just for EMP because I think you need it. But how do you win this fight? You can dodge the disruptors, but the Immortals are going to two-shot your Marauders. Everything's just going to die instantly. GG. Classic take game 1. And wow. Have you ever seen a pro TVP with that many Immortals? I'm getting into game 2 in a second. Because I'm on NA. If I had known what patch the games were played on, I may have done this slightly differently, but it's just going to take us 2 more seconds to load into the next game. So that was on Royal Blood, and game 2 is on Grezvon. This Protoss army brought to you by Warpsmith Karax. Mech only baby. There you go. There's the Protoss mech. Protoss mech. That's what it was. That's what it was, guys. Classic has become a mech player. He's become a mech player, ladies and gentlemen. In the bottom right of Grezvon, here in the Korean Starleague, we have the blue Terran player. He is Gumiho. Nary a banshee was seen on that day. Now the thought of a cruiser. And coming out with a beautiful psychopath serial killer build in game 1. Leading the series, ladies and gentlemen, he's Classic. When I talk about Protoss players needing more options, you know, I honestly did not think that anybody had a new way to play against regular bio. I just didn't really, you don't really expect that the guy's answer to that problem is 13 or 14 Immortals. Just feels like just a little excessive. And maybe in a good way. Maybe it's really not that bad. Maybe it's the way that things are supposed to be. Maybe Nathan is hyper-fixating on this because it's probably the most interesting thing he's seen casting a game of StarCraft in a month. I'd say it's up there with Classic's double carrier rush against Dark last week, though. If you guys missed last week's KSL matches, they were the bee's knees. So what's Gumiho going to do now? Double gas. I already like the switch up. Now the probe for Classic. He went in, he saw the barracks, but he doesn't know exactly about the gas. So he thinks that he's blocking Gumiho from building a command center. That's why the probe dances in that spot. Because if it was just a regular straight up Reaper expand, that's what he would be doing. But that's not the case. So instead, the SCV's like, yeah, I'm going to just come up and build this depot. Maybe he thinks he built the command center as his main base. Maybe he thinks he didn't. Usually for a Protoss, you know the Terran is going to do everything they can to slam down that command center as fast as possible. This isn't Grandmaster League, okay? These are the pros. And straight into the reactor as a follow-up. So what's it going to be, Snake? We doing a Hellion drop? We doing a Widowmine drop? We doing a Thor drop? Gumiho has done all of those things in the KSL over the last 3 weeks as well. He hasn't played as much as Classic, but I think I'm still doing that build every game. Well, not every game. I have Battlecruiser Rush, Cyclone Rush, and then I'm a Gumiho build. Which is, he does like a mine drop with drilling claws and builds a Thor and just chauffeurs it around with a medevac and inside of his own base to prevent any kind of damage. Because it turns out that the Thor having like 300 health just generally makes it a decent defensive unit. Especially when you move it around with a medevac. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? But he's not doing that. He's not going for a mine drop. That's not what it looks like. Instead, this is some kind of, I want to expand quickly build, use my Reaper to keep tabs on you build, and now, as we progress further through this game, it seems to be turning into a, well, you don't want to be mine dropping versus a Phoenix opener. So what's he getting? Cloak Banshee. Well, when I look at this, even though Phoenix don't really have any weakness to Banshees, because Phoenix are the hard counter, if you asked, average Redditor guy, his opinion. And the Phoenix, though, it doesn't have detection. And going with this tech tree, if you don't find that Banshee immediately, can make this very, very difficult. So I'm kind of curious where this goes. The Banshee did just finish. The Phoenix is about to roll up for Classic. The Marines kind of push him away, but careful that trajectory doesn't... You do not want him to find that Banshee. You do not want to push him towards your Banshee either. You gotta be careful, mate. Careful, mate. Careful. Ah! Yeah, I gotta make noises. Sorry, guys. It's my contract. So we have another gateway being added, robotics bay, and of course there should be detection pretty soon. There should be detection out very, very soon for him. So, well, the Reaper actually goes back in. Is he not doing anything with the robotics facility? Is my question. Yeah, there is no observer. Okay, he's going straight into an Immortal. So this Banshee could get some damage. There's no shield battery. Banshees kill probes in 2 hits. By moving out with the Cyclone and these Marines, what he's doing... Oh, it's actually great bait to keep the Marines hidden during that, because he has to cancel the Graviton, so he just forces out a little more energy from Classic. These are really tiny moves that are kind of sexy to see. Right as that attack is hitting, that's when the Banshee is in the main base. You can see the energy on that bad boy just rocking and socking these probes on their way down. There is no observer. There is no detection. There is no observer. There is no detection. It's about to finish, but there's another Banshee that's going to cloak and pick off the sentry. While Classic continues to chase this army away, it's just unupgraded Marines and a Cyclone, but the Banshee is getting to work on the Immortal. Imagine if he was able to pick that off. This would be huge. It's getting low. Very Cyclone. Gets it. So he takes out the sentry, takes out the Immortal, 14 probes, and... Ay caramba. What a game. What a game. Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. So there are Phoenix trying to wait for the Banshee to run out of energy, but right as it does, it reaches the Cyclones. So the Banshee is totally fine now, or at least it should be. The Stalkers are going to come up and distract those units. They do get the lock-ons to the Phoenix, but they will both barely escape. And Gumiho says, you know what? That seems pretty good. I'm going to take a third base. I'm going to take a third base, get the rest of my production rickety rolling, and get my engineering bay. Kind of crazy against the Stargate opening, not making your engineering bay until the 6.5 minute mark. But then again, Gumiho's been the aggressor this game. I mean, that's not really true. The Phoenix came across the map very fast, but 1 or 2 Cyclones can handle Phoenix. Cyclones right now do have 1 armor, which makes them a little bit safer against those early Phoenix plays. That's why he was able to keep him alive when he started that big push. But Classic's army is going to continue to hinge on the Colossus. And just a quick reminder, only on the America server has the Colossus been patched. They did not patch the other servers yet because they accidentally made it so that you cannot cancel building a shield battery anymore. I know it sounds like a bad April Fool's joke, but that's StarCraft now. So I just wanted to keep you all up to date on that. The Colossus has 10 range on this server still, the Korean server. I don't think they're switching servers to play each other. Otherwise, this would get way more complicated. Could you imagine that, actually? How does that work with the vetoes? If there was an American player against a Korean player, you know what? I shouldn't even go there. That just seems like a rabbit hole I don't want to fall down. Gumiho's got a couple of tanks spread out now as his third base has been acquired, and what we should be expecting, Classic's third has gotten up and running. Usually the Protoss is supposed to have that third base well ahead of the Terran. That is the intention. That is the design. So the fact that both of them are on 3 bases, after all the damage that Gumiho did, it really, really makes this a very tough situation. Makes it a very, very difficult situation. Just because Classic, he doesn't really have the money. But since it's a tank-heavy army, Colossi can deal with the Marines, and Zealots are just generally good against tank-based armies because charge and friendly fire. We saw that Prism be devastating last game. And this is something I really like about what Gumiho's doing. Look, we got 2 Cyclones. We got 2 Cyclones just chilling here. And he's going to see the whole army moving out. So the Cyclones here I really like to stop the drop. But as I say that, I think he F2'd. Did he F2? So he killed the Observer. He F2'd, he killed the Observer. And now the Cyclones are not there. You hate to see it. Is this that part of the game where the Terran stims all their whole army back inside the main base to try and catch this? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Good dodge by Classic. He delays the whole entire push by a solid minute there. And that is assuming that Gumiho goes across the map right now. So that gives him enough time to make 2 more disruptors. He could start 2 more. And he'll be even better prepared for when the attack arrives. Classic has really been, again, a stellar player to follow in this tournament series. Went back in with the Prism. Everything died, but killed 7 SCVs total. And forced, Vikings, Ghost to come back. And he wants to push up on this base. This is actually a really great siege position, if we look at it. I don't know if Classic can actually break this. This might be a... Okay, the tanks are not far up enough to actually siege this yet. So Classic still has a little bit of time. But if he gets the tanks a little closer, if he had 5 or 6 tanks on this spot here or close to this area, then I get very concerned for Classic's ability to dislodge it. Oh, he's repositioned. Okay, there it is. Perfect. I don't get vindicated like that very often, so I appreciate it, Gumi Bro. And he's set up for a really great concave here, too. EMPs are going to hit the whole Protoss army, and Classic is getting ripped apart like a snack pack in a Happy Madison film. The Colossi are still up. They don't have to commit as hard with the 10 range. But at the same time, the shield battery is keeping them alive, too. The tank is still being annoying, though. He's still getting a couple shots on him here. And this is the fight that we were discussing. You don't want to get into this. He can't really reach that tank. It's so low. It's so low. And he just can't. 36 HP. Let's just stick with movie quotes for this series. It was Jingle All the Way. I had it in my hands. I had it in my hands. I had the Turbo Man doll in my hands. Now that siege tank will go home. He'll get free Google AdSense certification, become an SEO optimization strategist at a small Fortune 500 bound company. He's going to get a pension and a 401k. His wife's never going to have to work another day in his life after this game. God bless you, Mr. Siege Tank. Now, the rest of the army is still in the game, though. They don't get to retire. So Gumiho's going to try and catch him out in this little vision blocker. But I don't think the Colossus is affected by the vision blocker, right? Because it has the air tag. Does get the observer, though. Picks that off. So one of Classic's bases do get shut down. And now I think Gumiho just has a huge lead. There's no other way to spin it. Gumiho is crazy far ahead. Things are so different compared to the first game. And largely because that Zealot Warp In did not end up eviscerating him, but his third base also did not get sniped 3 times either. Going for the siege tanks was a good play. And what I also like to see out of Gumiho is we're seeing him spend that money. Fusion core, +1 ship weapons. These are the things that he needs. And as I say that, the Zealots. Hello, baby. Guess who's back? It's been a minute. SCV's fighting the men with lightsabers for hands. Not a good fight. Not a good fight to be in. The army does come back and he clears it out, though. Let's face it. Economically, Gumiho is still this. I'm going to say something even crazier. I have 2 things to say. Number 1, he's at 80 SCVs and he's still building more. Number 2. Well, actually, it was pretty much the same thing. I was just going to say, you might just want the Zealots to kill your SCVs at this rate. But if he's trying to build a war chest so that he can transition, then you do want to have that extra money. It's something that you don't see a lot of Terran players do. I understand why he would do it, but I think it's funny that he went from 85 SCVs to 77, and then he was like, you know what? I need to build 5 more workers after that. But he's been rather uninhibited in taking his bases. We've seen Gumiho smash down this base over here, and we've seen Classic. In the first game, he was able to be crazy aggressive. But now, the Mass Liberator style is going to give a lot more difficulty to the Disruptors. So even though he's getting a lot of Disruptors out, he's still going to have to eventually come to grips with the fact that the Liberators are going to have the upgrades, they're going to have range. Both of those were missing from the last game. And I think that both of those are huge tools that will help. And a Marauder walks into a pallet of Stalkers and says, I'm dead. So is he going to do the drop? Do we use the Liberators to zone? Little HP energy check for you guys. Oh, another run by. Just what you ordered. There it is. He's trying to funnel himself a little bit in a choke point there. Gumiho's it's like the depot placement feels random, but at the same time, it's all about creating 1-by-1 chokes. It's something we could all learn from. You know, be a little more thoughtful with our building placement. Oh, that disruptor shot is filthy. Goodbye, Planetary. Okay, you know what? Classic! I thought you were in trouble, bro! Well, Gumiho didn't siege any of his Liberators before the fight, and, bunched all of his SCVs up into a Purification Nova. So I suppose we may have just seen the great Gumi Bro maybe make a little bit of a Gumi throw. I think you know what the stereotypical caster thing is, though. I shouldn't need to say it, but I think you know. You know what I obviously want to say. Well, you know, of course, Kev, we want to see a Game 3. These 2 players are so amazing. But now I'm like, is he, though? Is he okay? Is he ahead? I don't know. I don't know about that. Not so sure anymore. Outcome unclear. Purchase new Magic 8-Ball. Man, even these guys are squeezing us. There's that full army stim. Medivacs have no energy, by the way. Gumiho just did a quarter of a Psy Storm to himself. Very tough spot to be in. Classic's gonna blink into the Liberators and smash those down. But the unholy number of Disruptors, 15, is just wild. Gumiho's going for a little bit of mild base trade action on the natural. Warp-ins of Zealots are gonna be coming in to try and shut that down. But in the meantime, we have little EMP on the Colossus. It is quite a low-health Colossus, all the way in the biggity back of the army. You know what they say, EMP doesn't deal damage, so that Colossus is still alive. I just gave like 20 people a heart attack instantly watching who heard that. And GG. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, 2-0 for Classic. I didn't see that coming.